Angela Chambers, thank you so much for being on the Positively Joy podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
We were just chatting, and I told you that the more we can send the message of women who have experienced divorce but find healing through faith, it is such an important thing to do. And I'm having you on the show today because you have experienced that.
Yes.
You have a new book out, or new-ish book out, that we're going to talk about in a moment. But I want to let my audience know a little bit about you and hear your story. So tell us a little bit about yourself, as much obviously as you're comfortable with, when the divorce happened, and then how you were able to find your way back to that healing.
Okay.
Through God's grace and through your faith.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for inviting me. So, yes, I'm Angela Chambers, and I live in Trussville, Alabama, near Birmingham. And I have known the Lord all my life. I was raised in a wonderful Christian home. My daddy was a minister. We were raised up in church. I've never walked away, but that doesn't ever mean that stuff is not going to happen to you.
Amen.
Boy, does it. And so I was married. My first husband was military. So we married, and just 4 days after we married, he went to Germany, and I met him there later. And if I am honest, and I will be, there were red flags in the beginning that I just kind of overlooked. And so things were kind of rocky even from the beginning, but progressively got worse. I stayed for 28 years.
Wow.
Did. Because I thought that's what good little Christian girls do. That, you know what, even though things are not right, they're not as they should be, and they were not as the Lord would have wanted me to put up with. I did because I didn't want to embarrass my parents. I didn't want to bust up my family. I had 3 little girls, and I just thought, what am I going to do here? And I wore a very pretty mask because people didn't know what was going on at home. And there was abuse. There was financial abuse out the wazoo. There was emotional, you name it, and it was there. It was present. But I wore a mask, and I continued, and I was always in church, and I was always active with my relationship with God. But yet things were wrong at home.
Do you think that you were going to church? Do you think that the fact that you did cling to church and that you did cling to God even in those very difficult times, do you think that allowed you even to survive, even before you made the decision to leave?
Without a doubt. I never told my parents what was going on. I might have told a few very close friends, but really didn't share with them what was happening, because we have some friends that I met when we were in Germany early that we're still friends with now, and they never knew. They never knew. They were so shocked to find out that I had walked out and we were getting divorced because I just didn't say anything. But yes, if I had not had my relationship with Jesus to stand on, I'm not sure how things would have turned out. And I know probably some of your listeners are either maybe they don't know Christ yet, or maybe they have not known Christ maybe as long as we have. And they're struggling with, where is God in all this? Why did God let this happen? God gets a lot of blame for a lot of things,
Yes.
in our lives. We want to get upset with him or blame him. I got into this all by myself. I'm not blaming God for any of this, but I had to rely on my faith. I was strong in my faith, and I continued that because I knew that Christ was my only answer. I knew that Christ was going to see me through. And he went to church a lot of the time too. He had a relationship, but it got very skewed, the further along we went with just a lot of the stuff that went on. One day, my daddy came by my house, and I told my daddy just a little bit of what had gone on the day before. And he looked at me and he said, "How long are you going to do this?"
This is your daddy, the pastor.
My daddy, the pastor. I didn't say anything to my daddy at that moment, but my mind my emotions, my heart was set free. My daddy released me. I didn't say that to him, but I thought, not anymore after today. And I began to, my wheels, listen, I had wanted to walk out so many times and fear grabbed me, or what am I going to do? Or how am I going to do this? Or, what about my kids? The what ifs, the what ifs, the what ifs. So I began to make plans. Two of my daughters were already married and had one infant. They were very young at the time, and one was engaged. She came in that night and she said, "Mama, something's wrong. What's going on?" I said, "Baby, we're leaving. We're leaving." She said, "Are you sure this time? You promised this time?" Because she and I had a code word, and I had some money hidden that if it wasn't safe for either one of us to come home, we would use this word if he was around, and we would know what to do. Nobody should live this way.
No.
And so she said, "What are we going to do?" I said, "I have no idea. I just came to this today. We're going to do this." His parents were coming over that night. One of them had a birthday and we were having a dinner. I pretended more. I pretended. Now they knew a little bit, but I just, not that day. And so 4 days later on Good Friday, I asked him to turn the TV off. I said, "There's something I got to say." And we were miserable. We were both miserable. We were both new. And I said, "I'm not going to explain all this, but I want you to know that I am leaving. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not taking this anymore. And I'm walking out." I began to make the plans. Now, if there's some people that are listening and you say, "Well, you call yourself a Christian." Well, see, that's what he said in my ear. He would literally come up behind me and whisper, "Little Miss Christian, little Miss Church girl, you'll never do this. You'll never leave. You're too embarrassed to what people will say. You're too embarrassed about what people will talk about you." And so that was always in my ear. But God, ladies, God does not want us mistreated. God does not expect us to take garbage and be mistreated. That is not his plan for us. His word says he hates divorce, and he does. And the reason he does is because it is detrimental to us. It is so hard. I was so hurt. I had to learn to do. Now, I'm a tough old girl. Let me tell you, I can do just about anything on my own. But we're meant to do life together, not, tugging war against each other. And he says he hates it, and he does. He intends for it to be together, but not this way. And so when people began to find out, they were jaw dropped. "You? I never knew." They were so shocked. It's because I hid it, and we shouldn't have to do that. Now, I don't think we should just leave for any reason, any little reason, I don't like them anymore, or I don't like the way they wear their haircut, or, I'm just saying all that stuff. That is not it.
Right.
I'm talking about when your life is in jeopardy. God does not want us to live like that.
And you said your daddy released you, but do you think that God released you through your father's words?
Yes, I do. Absolutely do. Because there had been so many times where I picked myself up off the floor and I said it was the last time. And I stayed again. Yes, I absolutely, positively know that God used my daddy's words, because like I said, I never told my parents a whole lot. Rarely did I tell them. My mother knows more now in the past 2 years than I ever told her in their life. And she just cries and she says, "Baby, I didn't know. You didn't tell me. I didn't want to burden them. I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't want to, And so, yes, absolutely. God released me using my daddy. My father used my father.
Yes.
And so, that day, that clinched it for me.
Let me just tell you about Good Friday for a second. I love the fact that you left on Good Friday. There is so much love. I know that was a painful and a hurtful day, but there's so much love on Good Friday. I got married on Good Friday. And people tell me, "Well, that's a weird day to get married on. That's kind of sad." I'm like, do you know how much love is there? What Jesus did for us on Good Friday. So I love the fact that that's when you left. Yeah.
It was relief. Yes. It was a good Friday.
It was a good Friday. All right. So I know that was, obviously it was tough, 28 years. I just talked to someone yesterday who was with her husband for, I want to say 25. So you have beat that. You might have been the longest married person I've talked to so far. So clearly that was really difficult and not an easy, I mean, like you said, it was a Good Friday, but not an easy lift. And even after that, I imagine there was pain, there was heartache. So tell us what happened after the divorce and what you needed to do in your life to heal from that.
Okay. So I didn't really have anywhere to go. I didn't have a job. The end of our marriage, he had stomach cancer. Now, it was nothing that was going to take his life, but it was cancer. And I played the doting wife. I took him to chemo. I did everything I could do. He couldn't work. I couldn't work because he had a lot of appointments a month. We were behind on everything, and I stayed, and I got him his military benefits and his Social Security benefits. I did what I thought God would want me to do, and just being, I guess, honorable as I could in a weird kind of way. But I did those things before I left. But we also owed a lot of things. We were behind on a lot of things. But so then I had to find a place to live, and I had to stay with my parents a few nights, his parents a few nights. And I picked up cleaning houses. Now, I had been on staff at the church, not at the time of the separation, because I stayed separated 2 years. And that's because I had prayed and wondered if we could fix this, if, it could be repaired, but it could not. So I started cleaning houses because I thought, okay, I keep a nice and tidy house, so maybe I can do this for others. They trust me. They know me to be in their homes. But I thought surely that I would be able to get back in a church soon. But boy, that divorce didn't allow me back in the church. And that's a shame that churches feel that way, but it was. And for 7 years, I had to clean house. But in those 7 years and in that time alone, I really had to detox, for one, to just get rid of a lot of negative feelings, a lot of garbage, but the first week by myself, God brought me the verse, Exodus 14:14. I will fight the battle for you. All you must do is be still. And it came, somebody sent it to me, just scripture. It was in my Bible reading. Somebody tore it out of their calendar and sent it to me. It was on a meme on Facebook. Every day that verse was there, and I thought, okay, God,
yeah,
I'm going to let you do this, and I'm not going to make any rash decisions from here. I got to have a job. I got to take care of myself. I've got to have money coming in. He gave me nothing. I had no money from him. And so I just had to take little baby steps and really just heal, just find out who Angela was by herself. And I had a place to stay for just a couple of months, and it was going to go. I moved into a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house for 2 months, and it was going on the market, and it was some family of ours. But so I finished packing them up, finished packing the house up, and I got to stay there for free. And I just listened to praise music and packed them up. I had no TV, or I listened to the radio, and I just danced and sang and cried because I felt like I had failed somehow. That I could not, no matter what I did, I couldn't in my own strength make this marriage work. And I had tried. I'd gone to marriage counseling. I had done those things, and I just couldn't do it. But with God, He fought for me. And little by little by little, I began to come out from the bondage and all that. Just 2 months into my separation, I went to the beach with my former mother-in-law and some friends. We went every summer. So I was out, and I was having a quiet time with the Lord and really crying out to Him and saying, God, what am I going to do? I mean, I've got to make this life happen for me. And I don't know. And I'm just sobbing, and I'm crying, and I'm reading scripture, and I'm praying. And so I just get through with my quiet time, and I'm walking back out, and it's time for me I'm going to look for shells again. And I can't wait to see what I'm going to find this day. And then there's just not those big, beautiful shells there that day. There's just the normal little shells I find, but I keep them all. They're treasures to me. But I was expecting, what I had been finding. And at that time, everything stopped for me. I call it an encounter with God. I don't know what it was, a vision. I don't know, but I was in the water, and I didn't see anybody else. I didn't hear the children playing. I didn't hear the waves crashing. It was just God and I. And He said, Angela, I wanted you to find these shells. as a tangible reminder to you that a storm brought them in. That storm last week brought them in. They were tossing and turning and tumbling. The sea was roaring and the waves were crashing and the thunder and the lightning. And he said, those shells made it to the shore. And Angela, you're going to make it. You're just like these shells. They're whole, they're unique, they're beautiful, and so are you, and so you will be. And I wanted you to have this as a sign from me that you will be restored. And so I ran to the beach where I had my things and I wrote the word restored in the sand and I put a little group of shells and I took a picture and that sits on my desk every day where I can see it. And those group of shells, just those are in a special jar. And they are the most unique shells I've ever seen. It's like you would get at the souvenir shop. They're not broken and they were anemones and just they're purple and they're just vibrant colors and they're just gorgeous. And God had that just for me. It's like I said, it's like, was nobody else interested? Maybe nobody else saw those shells, but they were there for me. And so that's where Restored Ministries came from. That's where I birthed it. And that's the speaking ministry that I have. And the restoration came bit by bit by bit. So I started speaking and I eventually, I cleaned for 7 years and I didn't want to do that. But you know what? Those people gave me a paycheck. And on my birthday, they gave me something special. And Christmas, they did. They gave me leftovers out of their refrigerator. They prayed for me and they loved me. I also have a lot of funny stories from that. Oh my goodness, about how God used them in my life. And so that was part of the restoration. And so I was able to forgive my former husband for the things that went on. And that was restoration to my soul. And I've been able to write. I've written a 30-day devotional book. I am remarried now. There's just, I can tell you a lot of things, just the emotional part where God has just restored me. So to those that are listening, you are not alone. God has a plan. Even though you go, and there's things where my girls have to deal with their dad that brings up a lot of stuff sometimes. And his health and his things are not good. And so they will talk to me about that. And that's okay. I want them to, because he's their dad. And I want to help them. But sometimes it brings things back. And I might have to deal with something. I might have to go to the Lord about that and say, but it lets me know how far I've come in my restoration.
Wow, what a beautiful story. And isn't it just like the Lord to be so creative and finding a way to reach out to you?
Yes, because that is what speaks to me. I mean, I don't have to have anything in this world, but I love shells and the sand and the sun. That's just, and he used my thing to get a message across to me.
Oh my goodness. Well, you mentioned your book. Let's talk about your book. It came out last.
Yes, it's called Real Life, Real Hope. And it's a 30-day devotional book. And it's just about real stories in my life. Migraine headaches, my grandchildren, pictures that are hanging on the wall, and how God uses and how God speaks to me in just everyday life. I'm just a plain old kind of girl, and God he speaks to me in every kind of way. And so it is on Amazon, Real Life, Real Hope. And if somebody happens to be local to Birmingham, I'd be happy to sign a copy and be able to meet them and give it to them. It'd be great.
Now, what made you want to write the book? Because you told me before we jumped on that you did not think you were an author.
I did not. It comes from a lot of journaling. I journaled a lot through my separation and divorce and after. And I took a speaking course from Robin Dykstra. And in that speaking course, I thought, okay, this might go hand in hand. But a girl in my class was a publisher. And when she mentioned that one day, I just thought, I wonder if any of my things are good enough to publish. And I talked with her and she helped me do this. And I've joined a writing club and I've been a contributing author as well and several other things. So it just sparked that in me to kind of go hand in hand with my speaking.
Excellent. So good. So good.
Yes.
So I know I talked to your husband a little bit before we jumped on, so I know he's there. So what does he think about your speaking ministry and about you talking about these kinds of subjects?
He's very supportive of it.
Mm-hmm.
We met online, so he says to people that I'm the best thing he's ever found online. So, yeah,
Oh,
he's
it's so
supportive, and because I do tell this story a lot, so I do talk about it a lot. He was also in a 27-year marriage, and so we have that in common. And both Christians, both of our spouses were, but things still weren't right. And so, yes, he supports me, and he was supportive in the book and the writing. And so, yeah, so that was been part of the restoration story.
Part of the story, I think, for a lot of women is after the divorce, they're wondering, okay, so what's next? And when am I going to find the next relationship? And I have been talking to women. I know it's part of my story. The Lord generally will take you through a time apart from men.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Because if you're like me, I was a real serial dater, and I was ready to find my next husband. But was that the same thing for you too?
Yes, I was alone for several years and very skittish about it. And some friends were, got online dating, and I was very reserved about it. And even after Darren and I went out once, I put a stop to it. I said, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I'm scared about doing this. And so let it go for a while. And then, we contacted each other again. But I mean, you've got to know yourself again. You've been somebody else for a long time. You've been a wife, and you've been a mother, and all those things. All of a sudden you're alone again. And then my daughter, I thought, was going to move out with me. She was engaged, and she decided to take that move as, I'm going to go ahead and move to the place where he and her were going to be. And I moved out by myself, and that's not what I thought was going to happen. So I was alone, but it was good. And I am not an idle person. I go all day long. I love to be out in the garden. I love to be outside. I love to do and just be active. And so that was good for me. And I was beginning to have grandchildren, and that was good too. And so, I just really kept busy, but I kept my relationship going with the Lord. Never missed Bible study or church or singing in the choir or all those things. I want to encourage those that are listening. Don't leave God on the wayside. Don't do that. I dug in deeper. I had a good relationship with God, but there was a lot of garbage in my life too. So I chose that as, I'm going to dig in deeper than I ever have, and be intentional in my Bible study, be intentional in my prayer life, in my church life, in the choir, and I volunteered in children's church and all those things, and just be in that. Don't leave Jesus by the wayside.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because that's so important. Well, for people who want to follow up with you, find the book and all of that, where can they find you?
So angelachambers.org is my website. Angela.restored1 @gmail is my email address. And I'm on womenspeakers.com. And then the book is on Amazon. And so I would love to hear. I'd love to come speak for your group or congregation. I don't just speak to women. I do primarily, but I also do congregation speaking. I've got some congregation groups coming up in May, and that is a beautiful time I'm honored that a pastor would give me the pulpit on a Sunday morning for a special occasion they're having. And so that's very exciting for me to do. And so any of those ways, I would love to be able to come and speak or teach for a group.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. I just appreciate you so much.